Just want to thank all of you for being here today. Once again, BC teachers are leading the way on getting a deal done that works for BC's public education system. We've put a fair and reasonable framework for a deal that would see improved learning conditions for our students on the first school day in September. However, 2 more days of bargaining have gone by with no progress or counter-offers from government and BCPC. British Columbians expect their government to be reasonable and to be flexible. But we haven't seen any will from government on the key issues around the learning conditions of our students. The government has violated the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms twice now. They passed unconstitutional legislation so they could strip $275 million out of our system per year from education. That has meant 12 years of cuts, larger classes, reduced support for children with special needs, and less one-on-one time for all of our students. Christy Clark's unconstitutional legislation has driven British Columbia to a point where this government now funds education $1,000 per student less than the Canadian average. Only Prince Edward Island is doing worse. If New Brunswick, Ontario, Manitoba, and all the other provinces can afford to do more for their students, so can British Columbia. Today, BC teachers are calling for mediation, doing what needs to be done to get a deal. Christy Clark should say yes to mediation today. Both sides are within 1% on wages. Both sides have signing bonuses on the table. The holdup is adequate funding to improve class size and class composition and minimum levels of specialist teachers. Teachers have led the way with big moves. Calling for mediation is an important step that says we are serious about getting a deal by June 30th. I hope Christy Clark and her government is serious too. If so, she should say yes to mediation. We are ready. We are ready to be at the bargaining table to negotiate a deal. Let's get to mediation and get it done before June 30th. Thank you.
Jim, what do you say to the government's claim that you are beyond the affordability zone with wage and benefits? 14.5% versus 7%. This is not even including the costs of education funds.
Well, we've put a reasonable framework for a settlement to the employer and to this government. And one of the key issues that they haven't addressed in their proposals is to improve the learning conditions for our students come September, which we acknowledge are our working conditions. We move to a zone in terms of our wage offer that goes to their zone. And now what we need from this government is to move to our zone so that we can get more funding in place come September so our students can start seeing smaller class sizes, more one-on-one attention, more support for students with special needs, and let's start having more specialist teachers in our system. That's what we need. That's what this bargain is about, and I'm hoping that mediation can get us there.
Could you address, I've asked Peter Fassbender, or we've asked Peter Fassbender, we've asked Christy Clark, we've asked BCPC negotiators, what's happening to the money saved by strike action? And none of them have committed to putting it back into education. So do you suspect that they're just trying to save money and put it back into general coffers?
Well, we know that this government, when they stripped our collective agreements illegally back in 2002, court documents at the time showed that the government did it to strip $275 million out of the system, out of schools, out of our collective agreement. That was their sole purpose in what they did. It was found to be illegal. And so, based on past practice with this government, that's what they could be doing. It's an issue that they're going to need to attend to, and hopefully that money will go into back into our education system.
You don't expect them to do it?
Sorry, do I?
Are you demanding that whatever money they save, they put back into education?
Well, it's the government's responsibility to do what's right.
Who are you wanting to mediate this, and how can they achieve something when you guys are so far apart?
Well, we're going to be calling on Vince Reddy to be the mediator, and we're hoping that government will agree with our choice. Vince Reddy has a lot of experience in disputes such as this. We know that he's been involved in the dispute at the ports, and they were on strike, and the government came with additional funding to get that deal done. And I know that there's still issues there, and he's involved in that. So I'm hoping that he will be able to come and mediate it. He's got the experience to do it.
The government has said that they're going to be putting forward that writing into the contract that $75 million learning improvement fund over 5 years to address immediately class size and composition. And you're saying that you're not doing anything immediately to address class size and composition?
Well, we know that there's a learning improvement fund out there already, and that it will be $75 million next year. And what government has said in terms of dealing with the issue, it's actually going to be $60 million when you take out other obligations to other unions that they negotiated. But we know that the learning improvement has not done what it was supposed to do. I believe it was last year, government has made claims that it created 500 teaching positions. Well, those claims are erroneous and not based on fact. In fact, government's figures show that last year there was 33 less teachers in the system. What we need is government to provide the stable funding for our students. Let's get up to at least the average, and let's deal with what we need to deal with come for September, and that's smaller class sizes, minimum levels of specialist teachers, more one-on-one time, the support for our students with special needs. And that will take money. They took out $275 million in 2002. And if you compound that every year, that's a lot of money that they took out of our system to pay for tax cuts for corporations.
The Minister, Fassbender, has said repeatedly that provincial exams will be marked. Will your members be marking exams?
Well, we have we've dealt with the grade 12 marks and grade 12 provincial exams. That's been dealt with at the Labor Relations Board, and we'll be honoring whatever designation that came out of the Labor Relations Board in terms of the grade 12 marks in provincial exams.
So
for grade 12s.
Your members will mark exams, or?
Well, there are procedures set in place in the essential services designation, and we will follow those procedures that have been placed in terms of the grade 12 provincial exams and the marks for grade 12 where we need to submit them to principals at a time. So whatever the decision was in the essential service regarding that, and we were involved in that decision, that's what we will abide by.
The government has said that if an arbitrator came in, typically they will split the difference in half. And you said basically to do this would be, the government says to do this would be an injustice to other unions because they would be all crying foul that you would get way more than needed.
Well, this is about getting a fair deal for teachers, which includes better supports for our students. And what we need the minister to concentrate on is how do we get the improvements for our system come September for our students. And we want to get this done before the end of June so we can be back in our classes come September, and that we can have a smooth startup and we can ensure that our students start seeing smaller class sizes again, have access to those specialist teachers, teacher counselors, learning assistance teachers, special education resource teachers, learning assistance teachers, teacher librarians, and that so important one-on-one time that we need. So they need to concentrate on what the important issues are in this round of bargaining, and so far that's not something we've seen that they're willing to address in a way that actually will make a difference for our system in September.
Could you talk about what kind of financial toll this is taking on individual teachers if they're not making strike pay anymore, and we've seen that food banks are being set up for them?
Well, absolutely. When when you're taking a stand, a just stand, in terms of, in particular for our students' learning conditions, which we know are working conditions, and teachers are taking the stand because they know what's happened in the last 12 years, and the cuts that we've faced, and that's why they're taking the stand. And they've been willing to be going without pay, and then on top of that, the 10%. Is that a hardship for some of our teachers? Absolutely, because we have a number of teachers teaching on call who actually live below the poverty level because of the amount of work they get. So, yes, there is some hardship, but our members are taking a stand for what they know is right for our students and our schools and what we need for September.
Mr. Edgar, can you tell us why you keep talking about class size and composition? Why is that so important?
Well, what it is who we are as teachers. And we know as teachers, we want to meet the needs of our students in the best way we can. And we want to feel supported. And we know that when we have smaller class sizes, where we have less students in our class, we can give them that so important individual attention that they need. Not only with their work, but in terms of treating them as having time to talk with them about how their day is going and making them feel special. And that's what's important about the smaller class size, having time to actually spend time with each child and helping them with their work. And we know that we've got students with special needs and other needs, and we need to feel supported by this government. And we know that in terms of having a learning assistance teacher come into a classroom, a special education resource teacher come into a classroom, or, if we have some students who have mental health issues, we want to know that they can access a teacher counselor to help them, not only with their learning, but to help them with survival. And what we've seen is that in the last 12 years, our students haven't had the same access to specialist teachers. We've seen our class sizes grow. The reason why our system is still strong is because of the dedication, commitment of our members. But it's been 12 years. Our students have been waiting, our parents have been waiting, we've been waiting, and we can't shortchange the next generation of students any longer.
With the smaller class size, from no classes at all now at this point, is that kind of what the payoff is, that smaller class sizes in the future is more important than no classes right now?
Well, we know we also have a Supreme Court decision where this government violated our constitutional charter rights. And the Supreme Court of British Columbia ruled back in January that these provisions of smaller class sizes for our students, specialist teachers, need to be restored. Government had the opportunity back in January, instead of continuing litigation, yes, it's their right to ask for an appeal, but they could have done what was right. The second time they were asked by the Supreme Court of British Columbia, they could have given the school districts the necessary funding to put those provisions back in place. We were open to the smaller class sizes coming in September. They didn't have to do it in February and March. That's what government could have done, and they've chosen not to do that. And so it's important that we take a stand, because it's been 12 years. 12 years in waiting for our students and for our teachers. Enough is enough, and we have to deal with this for September. That's why we want to get the deal done by June, end of June, and that's why we've called for a mediator.
So is your belief that without a mediator, this is going to drag on through the summer?
Without having some extra support of a mediator, that this could drag on. We were told that yesterday at the bargaining table that the employer was not interested in being back at the table at this point of time. And so we're serious about getting a deal. And that's why we've called for mediation.
On the way over here, I heard a commercial from the BCTF. So if you have no money to pay teachers' strike pay, how do you find the money for advertising?
I think there are some radio ads on right now that are sponsored by the Surrey Teachers Association and maybe some of our other locals. And we thank them for that.
So to clarify, the BCTF are not spending any money on those ads directly?
On the current ads, no, we're not spending any money on that directly at all.
Any word yet on what the stand would take towards summer school? Like this drags on?
Well, I've been clear on this one that what we need to do is concentrate on getting this deal done before the end of the June. Hopefully we can get to it by the weekend and work on it. That's what our hope is, and that's where the concentration will be. And that's where I think everybody's efforts and thoughts need to be. Thank you.